behind some of the most heinous acts committed across the country lies an elite class of criminal masterminds, like puppet masters who maneuver the strings of America's most wicked crash dummies. These are the 10 most diabolic shot callers. First to migrate the rolling 90 Crips from LA to Tennessee, Donut and his crew amassed over $10 million within the first year of setting up shop. In the process, they snatched the souls of 13 individuals, including one of their own who wanted out the set. In the spine-numbing winter of '97, mentally disturbed member Eben Payne crept into the home of ex-Crip Kennard Murray. Under Donut's direct orders, he split both the wigs of Kennard and his pregnant girlfriend, then blew the elbows off their 3-year-old daughter. For 10 days, the little girl miraculously survived drinking toilet water before being discovered lying in between her decomposing parents. Apprehended 2 years later, Donut was hit with 25 life sentences after attempting to fly off the roof of Nashville's federal court building to avoid trial. But what's even more astonishing was how his deranged henchman managed to dodge prison altogether after getting diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, making him too incompetent to stand trial. Fidel Castro unleashing his most undesirable citizens as depicted in Scarface might have been a nightmare for some, but a blessing for Cubans like King Blood, who was serving time for a body in Havana. 4 months after arriving, King was extradited from Chicago to New York to stand trial for the manslaughter of his annoying girlfriend. Housed at the Collins facility, Blood inducted the first New York inmates into his own Latin King set in order to eradicate the black Muslims who controlled the building since '63. Once in power, Blood ruled with an iron fist. His most brutal hit transpired after demanding William Cartagena to whack another king who felt superior on the outside. When William botched the hit, Blood grew paranoid and demanded he get whacked too. So in the summer of '93, several members walked him into a secluded Bronx apartment, then took turns carving the insignias off his body before deboning him with electric turkey carvers. To this day, his head has never been found. Following the collapse of Cambodia's Communist Party, over 100,000 refugees arrived on the shores of Long Beach, California. Greeted with ridicule by the urban Chinese kids who felt superior, gave birth to the Asian boys led by a young loose screw named Marvin Mercado. With no means to reap revenge, Mercado orchestrated a string of home invasions in LA's upper-class neighborhoods, including a botched robbery where a wealthy businessman got his lungs deflated in front of his wife and kids. Once loaded with cash, Mercado armed his guerrilla hit squad with extended banana clip sticks, then proceeded to conduct a hellacious orchestra of back-to-back hits. Labeled the Summer of Madness, his crew despicably hit more bystanders than it did targets due to the immensely inaccurate burst of the high-velocity submachine techs. Fleeing the country before the DA could connect the dots, Mercado quietly ducked the law for 12 years before being extradited back to the US, where he was slapped with 8 consecutive life sentences. Originally a Latin king from the Bronx, MAGOO would experience an act of betrayal in 1994 that would alter the trajectory of blood culture throughout the country. On a bone-chilling February afternoon, MAGOO came across 2 fellow kings getting mobbed by a flock of Dominicans. Following protocol, MAGOO discharged every round in his nickel-plated clip, striking 3 and puncturing the lungs of a Jose Pagan. Although ballistic evidence would later come up inconclusive, the 2 kings he saved chose to implicate him to avoid prosecution in a separate case. Rightfully so, MAGOO relinquished his yellow crown and picked up a red bandana after experiencing true loyalty within Rikers Island. Standing on business, MAGOO would put in pain by practicing the dark art of summoning razors from his rectum during times of war. 10 years later, he was crowned the first ever Latino blood godfather in history, thus becoming the catalyst for Spanish youth to fully integrate into the once strictly black mafia. In the wake of the jaw-clenching blizzard of 2001, Chicago's streets were flooded with so much powder that a single trap in West Garland Park was generating well over $1 million a month. The first internal conflict between two competing vice lord sets ignited in 2002 when the Wicked Town vice lords lowered their price of snow, taking clientele from the Four Corners across the street. When the Four Corners leader, Mr. Johnson, realized the monopoly, he greenlit a wave of hits on all opposing trap stars like Lil Dawn. When Johnson's henchmen went to collect his life, Lil Dawn caught him first and parked his soul at a red light. 6 months later, Dawn personally confronted Johnson and projectile sprayed the pink mist out his watermelon, single-handedly crippling the competition. For this valoric act, Wicked Town's founding father, Mr. Russell, crowned Dawn as their new Wicked Town top shot caller. For the next quarter century, Lil Dawn had the entire park in a chokehold up until the founder who crowned him became the star witness at his federal trial. Cursed with a wicked trigger finger, Pistol Pete's immaculate jump shot single-handedly catapulted his tiny crew into the colossal 5-star blood set it is today. Like a blessing in disguise, it was Pete baptizing 3 men with up-close precision dome shots that led to his first ever trip to Rikers Island, thus crossing paths with the very founder who would sanction his crew as one of the 5 original blood sets. Bestowed upon vast intoxicating power, Pete proceeded to decimate any chance of a future power struggle by targeting his very own underboss, David Mullins. Labeled a Thanksgiving Day bloodbath, Pistol Pete infamously sent Jose Green Eyes and Robinson Mac 11 to fire hot lead into their own holiday flag football game. Failing to foresee the back door, spectators claim Mullins had a perplexed look on his face while profusely hemorrhaging out his waistline. Although he did nothing wrong, it was the brutal public display of power that undoubtedly set the precedent as to who would pull the strings from the top of the sex, money, murder food chain. In midst of the Black Guerrilla family losing structure, hundreds of members began splintering into subsets. Following suit, Hove united 14 of the most conniving cutthroats to open a body shop. Charging $10K a corpse, elite hitter Corey Cawthorn commenced the grimiest summer in Baltimore by knocking the cerebral fluid out 38-year-old Dwayne Cheeks. The following month, he disintegrated the lower lumbar of 22-year-old Darius Mason before drilling smoke into a suburban house party. By 2019, the DA was so desperate to put Hove out of business that they confined him to house arrest over petty intimidation charges. It wasn't until 2021 that they unsealed the federal indictment, connecting him to 45 orchestrated hits. Refusing to spend the rest of his life in a cage, Hove barricaded himself in his girlfriend's apartment, then slung iron with U.S. Marshals before obliterating his mind with the last round. Deeply intertwined since adolescence, Black and Mexicans in South Central LA would undergo their first ethnic divide under the leadership of TABLAS Castellanos. While calling shots from a cell in Pelican Bay, TABLAS got word that his people got ripped for over 300 bricks by some Crips in Florence. Refusing to look weak, TABLAS immediately ordered the eradication of all Crips within a 3-mile perimeter. Quickly getting out of hand, Florencia would wipe out over 90% of the Black general public, completely metamorphosizing the once predominantly Black neighborhood. For these atrocities, TABLAS was condemned to solitary confinement for so long that his criminal mind got severely altered. 23 isolated years later, TABLAS and the rulers of the Black Guerrilla family White Brotherhood jointly orchestrated a 29,000 inmate hunger strike, resulting in a class action lawsuit against the governor. 2 years later, Pelican Bay inmates were awarded better food options, new appliances, longer visits, and most importantly, the end of indefinite isolation. Going down as the AB's longest reigning shot caller, Barry's responsible for binding their first ever blood pact with the Mexican Mafia. While serving his first bid in Cali's dual vocational institute for gladiators, Barry found himself nearly getting half his face filleted by some blade-wielding guerrillas, up until Mexican pound-for-pound legend Cato Vargas beat the brakes out 3, allowing Barry to split the bellies of the other 2. Discharged 2 years later, both men would reunite to commit the biggest bank heist in Fresno history, making off with over $500,000 in today's valuation. Living large for a mere 6 months, both men ultimately earned 20 years in Lompoc's federal USP. With nothing left to lose but his supremacy, Barry became surgical with his cutters, ripping apart BGF member Garland Barry, as well as nearly decapitating a thief named John Marsoff, whose head was left barely clinging to its stem by a few strands of elastic spinal cord ligament. For 40 years, Barry remained the undisputed federal commissioner of the AB until perishing in his sleep at the ripe age of 70. Indoctrinating his neighborhood family bloods in ritualistic voodoo, Big Evil Johnson's occultic ideologies were directly responsible for some of the most gut-wrenching horrors committed throughout 1990's South Central LA.
Oh shit, this evil, I heard about them, you know, they was killing like a motherfucker like me. And I'm like, damn, they put in work, got murders under their belt like a motherfucker. I got murders under my, they worship the devil.
Said to require the offering of a loyal canine for the spiritual invocation of Ogum, the ancient warrior god of iron, Evil allegedly disemboweled the neighbor's Blue Nose pit the night before sending 2 crash dummies to raid a crib-infested house party in the summer of 1992. Raising a score by 3, Evil was then accused of removing the left eye of an adolescent crip named Danny Glass. 4 days after Danny's older brother agreed to take the stand, Evil made one call and got his wig pushed back before trial. Embarrassed by the failed prosecution, the DA pinned another 5 capital slayings on Evil, including the infamous blood initiation ritual of 91, where a young impressionable teen was forced to sacrifice 2 innocent civilians under broad daylight. Sentenced to euthanasia via a lethal injection, Johnson would aimlessly await his fate on death row, up until a bizarre turn of events got his sentence reversed over 20 years later. Whether it was his court-appointed lawyer or some malevolent wicketry, Big Evil Johnson would soon be reintegrated into society, despite ultimately confessing to another 13 slayings, as well as proclaiming to be a sick individual with an infatuation with murder.